morning. On behalf of the Cave Hill campus, I would like to welcome you and to thank you for joining us today. It is a privilege to so welcome all of you to this very important occasion as we gather to celebrate the remarkable leadership and enduring legacy of a truly distinguished Caribbean individual, the Most Honourable Eudine Barriteau, Professor Eudine Barriteau. My name is Cynthia Barrajaz, and I have the honor of serving as your Master of Ceremonies for this morning's program. Before we commence our program, a formal program, I would like to acknowledge the presence of Her Excellency, the Most Honorable Dame Sandra Mason, President of Barbados, His Excellency Ciro Siliberto Infante, Ambassador of Argentina to Barbados, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, whom I do not see, but Professor Clive Landis, Pro Vice Chancellor and Principal, the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus, Emerita Professor, the Most Honorable Violet Eudine Barriteau, former Principal and Pro Vice Chancellor, the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus, and all members of the Barriteau family. Members of senior management of the University of the West Indies. Now, bear with me for a moment. Miss Isua, I hope I have it right, Ayahin, head of the Office of UN Women, Multi-Country Office for the Caribbean. Sir Paul Altman, former chairman of the Cave Hill Campus Council, and Lady Altman. Professor Don Marshall, University of the West Indies, University Director, Sir Arthur Lewis Institute of Social and Economic Studies. Professor David Akombo, Dean, Faculty of Culture, Creative and Performing Arts. Dr. Halima Deschon, University Director, Institute for Gender and Development Studies. Mr. Krabal Barriteau Foster, and Mrs. Aliyah and Amara Barriteau Foster, deans and heads of departments. Former members of senior management, and I've seen a number of you, and members of the university community, distinguished guests here at the university, or viewing via UWITV. And at this stage, I have to say a special recognition to the Grenada Government Information Service for carrying us live, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. It is with great pride and, of course, deep gratitude that we gather here today for this special occasion, the official naming ceremony for the School for Graduate Studies and Research Building in honor of what we all believe is a truly extraordinary individual. We are here not just to unveil a name, but to celebrate a legacy. A legacy which is marked by visionary leadership, an unwavering commitment to equality and justice, and in particular, of course, gender justice. Not women justice, but gender justice. Today, we gathered to celebrate and honor her legacy. Professor Barriteau's unwavering commitment to academic excellence and institutional growth laid the foundation for what graduate studies have become today. The building, not quite assembled in the building, but I think you will bear with me, the building in which we have assembled is a hub of intellectual activity and aspiration, and actually stands as a direct result of her determination and foresight. But I'll return to this momentarily. Beyond the walls, rooms, and corridors of this institution, her impact is visible in the many graduates who have gone on to hold influential roles across society, whether in government and academia, civil service, business, and beyond. The accomplishments are, in many ways, a reflection of the structure she helped to build and the values she so firmly upheld. In recognition of her sterling contributions and the building's growing centrality in the academic and civil life of the nation, it will, in short course, i.e. in the next hour or so, fittingly be renamed in her honor. This act serves not only to preserve her memory, but also to inspire generations to come. For her family her colleagues, and the broader community, the renaming or the naming stands as a lasting tribute to a life of purpose, service, and transformative leadership. But today's event marks not only a celebration of individual achievement of Professor Barriteau, it is indeed a significant chapter in the ongoing evolution of our institution's history. So today we do more than pay tribute to a former principal of the Cavell campus. And lest we forget, also a former principal of the Open Campus, now Global Campus. We honor, as I said before, a visionary scholar whose life work has left an indelible imprint on higher education, gender equity, and social transformation in Barbados, the Commonwealth Caribbean, and beyond. Professor Barriteau's career has been shaped by a dedication to transformation, both within the academy and in the societies it serves. Her work, particularly in the field of gender in the Caribbean, has positioned her as a leading intellectual voice, advancing feminist scholarship and advocating for systemic changes. Her scholarship has interrogated historical systems of exclusion, whether such exclusion is political, social, or economic, and has in fact illuminated pathways towards equity, inclusion, and representation. Professor Barriteau's leadership at the UWI began long before she stepped into the role of the principal at this campus. We recall that Professor Barriteau was director of the Institute of Gender and Development Studies, later renamed and rebranded. She served as deputy principal of the Cavell campus, followed by her principalship of the Open Campus. She therefore came to us, and by us I mean the Cavell campus specifically, following a brief but highly impactful tenure at the Open Campus, where she demonstrated the kind of transformative leadership that would come to define her career. As principal, Professor Barriteau spearheaded several initiatives at UWI. This included recommending in 2006 the creation of the Faculty of Sports. She also launched the Smart Campus Initiative, designed to reconceptualize the delivery of higher education goods and services in Barbados and the Caribbean by harnessing ICT technology to support national and regional development. It was also Professor Barriteau who proposed the establishment of a Faculty of Culture, Creative, and Performing Arts. Throughout her stellar career at the UWI, Professor Barriteau broke barriers, not only by the caliber of her work on gender, but by her very presence in roles that for decades were the exclusive domain of men. In many parts of the world, women now outnumber men in university enrollment, and certainly they do at the Cavell campus, and are increasingly visible in academic faculty roles. Despite these gains, the upper tiers of academia remain disproportionately occupied by men. Leadership positions such as deans, and we're talking globally, provosts and university presidents are still often out of reach, revealing what feminist scholars would describe as the stubborn presence of the glass ceiling. Indeed, while the late Professor Hazel Simmons MacDonald preceded her as campus principal at the Open Campus, the position of campus principal at the Cavell campus had, until her appointment, been held exclusively by men. Professor Barriteau's achievements are therefore more than just a professional milestone. They are moments of historic significance that I think we should all celebrate. That Professor Barriteau rose to lead not one, but two of our campuses is a powerful testament to her resilience, her power, and her unwavering belief in the power of education to shape a more just and inclusive world. Professor Barriteau is perhaps best known for her work, as I said before, on gender in the Caribbean. But she has done, of course, much more than that. Through her work, she has challenged institutions to reimagine themselves, not just in terms of who leads them, but also in how they think, teach, and serve. Her contributions have indeed resonated across the Commonwealth Caribbean, earning her numerous national and regional honors. We congratulate her again for her 2019 National Award, having been awarded Barbados' highest national honor, the Order of the Freedom of Barbados, for outstanding contribution to tertiary education and pioneering leadership in the development of gender studies and the promotion of gender equality. At the time of the award, forgive me, Professor Barriteau, but I thought it was useful to share it with the audience, Professor Barriteau stated, "I am simply overjoyed, humbled, and deeply honored to have been awarded the inaugural Order of freedom of Barbados. It is an overwhelming feeling of appreciation to have my work and my commitment recognized in my lifetime. She further stated, I am even more thrilled to make history as one of the first recipients of the Order of Freedom of Barbados. I've enjoyed the contributions I have made. I think that is so significant, and I have a deep sense of loyalty to Barbados, which has embraced me and enabled my flourishing as a scholar and leader. We at the Cave Hill campus hope that this small honor today will also be received in the same light by you. In July 2011, she was bestowed the 10th CARICOM Triennial Award for Women. In 2013, during Barbados's 47th anniversary independence celebration, she was awarded the Gold Crown of Merit, which is the country's third highest honor in recognition of her invaluable contribution to gender development. In February 2016, she was bestowed the Order of Grenada Gold Award for Excellence for the year 2015. And in 2024, Queen Eudine was inaugurated, whereby a landship dock, a symbolic maritime space, was named after Professor Eudine Barriteau. This represented, and I'm sure you saw them there a while ago, this represented the first instance of a dock being named in honor of a woman. Congratulations. Professor Barriteau's election to the United Nations Committee on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women speaks volumes about her global influence and lifelong dedication to the rights and empowerment of women everywhere. In that role, she has given voice to the marginalized, she has championed systemic change, and she has reminded the world, and certainly the Caribbean, of the power of equity and representation. But beyond the awards and accolades, her impact can be felt in the growing confidence, I believe, of many young women now entering academia, because many of them can see themselves reflected in her leadership. And today we take another historic step. This naming to honor Professor Barriteau makes her the first woman in the history of this campus to receive such a recognition. It's the naming of an entire building. The first woman to be so recognized. In doing so, we do not only celebrate her singular contributions, but we celebrate her contributions to the development of graduate studies at the Cave Hill campus. We also, as our registrar, campus registrar, Rommel Carter reminded me about 2-3 weeks ago, we also inscribe into the institutional memory, in so doing, a powerful and enduring symbol that leadership by women is not exceptional. Although Professor Barriteau is exceptional, it is in fact essential. This is not only a tribute, therefore, the naming ceremony is not only a tribute to a personal achievement, as I said, it is a collective affirmation that leadership is not bound by gender, that the contributions of women must be visible, valued, and venerated in the public memory of our institutions. Today, by naming this building in her honor, the UWI Cave Hill campus will etch her contributions into the very fabric of our institutions. This space will now stand not only as a place of learning and collaboration, but as a lasting tribute to the values she embodied and the path she forged. But beyond all of this symbolism and the symbolism of those moments, it is hopefully transformational. This moment is hopefully transformational, for it invites us to reflect on the past, to recognize how far we have come, and to commit ourselves to creating spaces where excellence knows no gender and leadership is defined by vision and, in fact, impact. I distinctly recall the previous location of graduate studies. I've been here for a long time, so I recall the previous location of graduate studies at the Cave Hill campus, a most unsuitable location. In fact, I should say scattered locations on the main campus because it was not in a single space. Much of what we now recognize as graduate studies is testament to her vision, leadership, and unwavering commitment to scholarship and the research enterprise. She was instrumental in the streamlining of critical processes, providing expanded access to students and staff, and helped shape a more responsive and dynamic academic environment for graduate students. Perhaps most tangibly, together with Professor Beckles, our Vice Chancellor, then campus principal, she was the driving force behind the development of this very building, which we'll be renaming shortly. And this building has become a vital hub for graduate education and research. And I want to reiterate, it is therefore quite fitting to honor Professor Barriteau in renaming this building, a tribute to her, in her name, a tribute to her remarkable contributions, her enduring impact on this institution, and the pivotal role she played in making this site a central hub of graduate studies. This site is where Professor Barriteau served for several years as a campus coordinator of the School for Graduate Studies and Research. And therefore, as I said before, it is fitting that we so recognize her, given the building's centrality in the life of the university. So this morning, let us celebrate Professor Barriteau, not only for what she has accomplished, as I said before, but for the doors she opened and the legacy she continues to build. And I just add a little note. Professor Barriteau, I think, was quite instrumental in my foray a bit more into, if not gender studies, because she did say to me on more than one occasion, you are not doing gender, you are doing sex, and that's all right. It is a reminder of the many women, scholars, administrators, educators who have labored, often invisibly, to make spaces like this more inclusive and more just. And it is a powerful gesture towards the future, towards the young men and women who will walk past this building and be reminded that leadership, scholarship, and intellectual or institutional excellence are not in fact constrained by gender. So please join me in standing, those of you who are able to honor Professor Barriteau, the Most Honourable V. Eudine Barriteau, a leader, a scholar, whose contributions have enriched the institution and the broader academic landscape across the Caribbean and beyond. A woman whose name will forever be etched into the history and future of this institution. I thank you and congratulations, Professor Barriteau. Thank you. So as we recognize the remarkable journey that has brought us here today, let us now turn to the next part of our program to hear from those who have been inspired by her vision and dedication, those who have worked with her, and those whose careers she helped shape. In our midst are a few special people who will be sharing their thoughts about Professor Barriteau, and I would like to take this opportunity to ask the audience to join me in welcoming each of them as they come to the podium. So firstly, I would like to invite Professor Clive Landis, Pro Vice Chancellor and Campus Principal, to offer a few remarks. He holds a unique and meaningful connection to Professor Barriteau. And I think perhaps I won't say any more because I suspect Professor Landis will in fact so inform. Thank you.
Master of Ceremonies, Professor Cynthia Barrow-Giles, Professor of Constitutional Governance and Politics, Her Excellency, the Most Honourable Dame Sandra Mason, President of Barbados, His Excellency Ciro Siliberto Infante, Ambassador of Argentina to Barbados, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, Vice-Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, Emerita Professor, the Most Honourable V. Eudine Barriteau, former Principal and Pro-Vice-Chancellor of the UWI Cave Hill Campus, and members of the Barriteau family. Members of senior management, the University of the West Indies, distinguished speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very pleasant good morning and welcome to everyone attending this joyous occasion, whether in person or online, at which the University of the West Indies is pleased to bestow the honour of renaming a building on the Cave Hill campus after one of its most celebrated daughters, Emerita Professor, the Most Honourable Eudine Barriteau. Professor Barriteau, as you look around you at this sea of familiar and famous faces, led by none other than the President of Barbados, Her Excellency, the Most Honourable Dame Sandra Mason, I trust you feel, in a very true sense, the esteem in which you are held, both within the university community and the wider Barbadian community and the wider Caribbean public. But Eudine, I really have to quarrel with you. This naming ceremony has caused the campus no end of logistical headaches. We have had to go back to the drawing board time and time again to try to figure out how would we be able to accommodate so many people who are attending from near and far, who all want to be here to support you today. I can assure you it's been quite a struggle. But that is what happens when you are renaming the School for Graduate Studies and Research building at the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus in the honour of former Cave Hill Principal, Emerita Professor, the Most Honourable Eudine Barriteau. I wish to say a few brief words about Professor Barriteau's service to the university in her capacity as Pro-Vice-Chancellor and Principal of the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus, the first female principal of the Cave Hill campus. From my vantage point as Deputy Principal, under Principal Barriteau, and subsequently as her successor, I was able to witness and appreciate her leadership of the campus during tumultuous years between 2015 and 2021. Professor Barriteau's service to the university altogether spans over 40 years. The phrase UE institution is therefore often invoked when referring to Eudine Barriteau. The term conveys a sense of solidity, endurance, and resilience, all of which are characteristics that defined Professor Barriteau's term as principal, as the campus was buffeted by financial headwinds, a global pandemic, a hurricane, ashfall from the La Soufrière volcano, and an existential and deeply troubling drop in student enrollment, which ensued following the introduction of tuition fees payable by Barbadian students. To be honest, I was just glad that we didn't have a biblical flood this morning, because it seems that natural disasters do follow Professor Barriteau. But that's okay, I would have let her handle it. Truly, Professor Barriteau showed great courage and unyielding leadership when the campus was so tested by these most severe challenges that nature and economic circumstances could conjure up. However, through all her time at the helm, befitting as the daughter of a seaman, she was able to safely steer the good ship Cave Hill through these many storms back into safe harbor. On behalf of a grateful Cave Hill campus community, I wish to thank Professor Barriteau for her sterling leadership of the Cave Hill campus as Pro-Vice-Chancellor and Principal during very difficult times. Thank you, Eudine, most sincerely. With these words of welcome and reflection, I am pleased to hand back to the chair to give way for further reflections and musical tributes. But please allow me to extend thanks on behalf of the campus to the team of planners and organizers led by Mrs. Phyllis Tate and Mr. Peter Lewis, who have put together this wonderful and varied program for today's naming ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests all, please do enjoy the program and naming ceremony.
Thank you, Professor Landis. As someone who works so closely with Professor Barriteau, I think your words and your remarks have all the more meaning to the audience and, of course, to Professor Barriteau. So our next speaker is someone who was a mentee of Professor Barriteau, yes? Another phenomenal woman who shares a close professional journey and perhaps personal, you will have to say, with Professor Barriteau. So please welcome Dr. Halima Deschamps, University Director, Institute for Gender and Development Studies, the University of the West Indies.
Thank you very much, Chair, Professor Cynthia Barrow-Giles, Professor of Constitutional Governance and Politics, the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill campus, Her Excellency, the Most Honourable Dame Sandra Mason, President of Barbados, His Excellency Ciro Siliberto Infante, Ambassador of Argentina to Barbados, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, and Pro-Vice-Chancellor and Principal, the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill campus, Emerita Professor, the Most Honourable V. Eudine Barriteau, former Principal and Pro-Vice-Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill campus, members of the Barriteau family, including Professor Barriteau's son, Cabral Barriteau Foster, and granddaughters Aliyah, Anna Marie Barriteau Foster, and the entire Barriteau clan, who is here represented in full force. Members of senior management of the University of the West Indies, distinguished speakers, distinguished guests, all present with us here today in person and those joining us online, good morning all. In a 2003 publication on Caribbean women's transformational leadership, Emerita Professor the Most Honourable V. Eudine Barriteau wrote, and I quote, "I theorize transformational leadership as concerned with where power exists, how it is used, for what purposes, and who benefits. It is a leadership that does not only want to make the delivery of services good, services and goods better, but it wants to change what is delivered, as well as the environment in which that delivery takes place. It breaks out of the mold of and is not content with the status quo. Transformational leadership is an ideal and not easy to achieve, but very necessary to strive for," end of quote. I begin with this 2003 offering from our distinguished and beloved honoree as emblematic of the enduring clarity, political astuteness, and evaluative approach animating her leadership across various spheres of operation. Those of us who have had the benefit of her counsel as mentees, students, friends, family, as well as junior, mid, and senior career level higher education professionals, we situate her leadership and contribution within this tradition of transformational leadership, as you heard from our chair, Professor Barrow-Giles. My remarks today are offered in community with and on behalf of the Regional Institute for Gender and Development Studies family, past and present, as the Cave Hill campus of the University of the West Indies pays special tribute to an intellectual giant of international repute, whose path-breaking leadership in higher education and in global feminist activism, pedagogy, and scholarship continues to reverberate with great impact and intensity. And today here, I focus in particular on her outstanding mentorship and collegiality. In 2021, Dr. Tanya Haynes, current head of the Institute for Gender and Development Studies, Nita Barrow Unit, paying tribute to Professor Barriteau remarked, and I quote, "When we say your work has been path-breaking, it is not recourse to imperialist metaphors. It is because you clear the way for so many of us. You opened doors and held them open for as long as it took for us to gain the courage to walk through them," end of quote. This question of our relationship to the power we possess, the power we cultivate, the power we earn, and the power to which we are granted access in positions of leadership represent an important through line in Professor Barriteau's body of work across several spheres. It is a line of inquiry so thoughtfully addressed in her trilogy, Enjoying Power, Confronting Power, and Love and Power, the first two of which were co-edited with Emeritus Professor of History, Alan Cobley. For us in the IGDS, this question of what we do with power and the possibilities of deploying power to transform is indeed the story of Professor Barriteau's leadership, including here at the School for Graduate Studies and Research between 2004 and 2008. Distinguished honoree, specially invited guests, colleagues, friends, it is extremely tempting for me to use this time that I have this morning to tell a story about how one meeting with Professor Barriteau as a master's student in early 2005 transformed my entire career trajectory. How she provided me with rigorous, incisive analysis about my research. How my first publication as a new researcher was through her invitation to contribute to the last of her Power trilogy in 2010, or the pathway she created in support of scholarship and postdoctoral opportunities for me, all of which are extremely relevant to her contribution to building a tradition of graduate studies and research here at Cave Hill. Far more remarkable, however, than my personal experience are the countless parallel stories of Professor Barriteau's intense devotion to mentorship, knowledge creation, and institution building. Holding sacred what she calls the need for protected institutional spaces to pursue the ideas that feed our intellectual passions, Professor Barriteau led the establishment of a full-time program of teaching, research, and outreach that included programs and training in gender studies at the certificate, undergraduate, and graduate levels at the Cave Hill campus. For much of her 15 years as head of the then Center for Gender and Development Studies and later Institute for Gender and Development Studies, Nita Barry unit, she was also the only lecturer in that unit. And in 2004, 11 years into her headship of the center, Professor Barriteau was appointed campus coordinator, School for Graduate Studies and Research. During this period, she functioned as both head of the center and campus coordinator for graduate studies and research from 2004 until her appointment as deputy principal of the Cave Hill campus in 2008, a move that was unprecedented and has since not been pursued. What is extraordinary, though, about her contribution during this period is the transformation witnessed at both the Center for Gender and Development Studies and the School for Graduate Studies and Research. The MPhil PhD program in Gender and Development Studies was created by Professor Barriteau during this period and was offered for the first time in academic year 2007-2008. And between 2004 and 2008, rapid transformation also occurred here at the school. It is no accident that the first graduate of the MPhil PhD program at the Institute for Gender and Development Studies, Nita Barry unit, Dr. Tanya Haynes, is the current head of said institute of the Nita of the IGDS. This thread of feminist transformational leadership and mentorship for which Professor Barriteau is again being recognized today is captured in the next two reflections. 2013 graduate of the Nita Barry unit program, PhD program, Dr. Andrea Baldwin, who currently serves as Associate Professor of Gender and Ethnic Studies at the University of Utah, shared the following. She says, on a deeply personal note, Professor Barriteau has changed the course of my career. She opened doors to paths I did not even know existed. I still remember meeting her for the first time, my very first gender studies class with her, and how she took us under her wing without hesitation. I remember our first international conference in Argentina. Michelle, Tara, and I watched her in action and learned from her example of bold, brilliant leadership. She extended countless opportunities to me. Jexcel, or the Center for Gender Excellence in Sweden. Yes, but also the quiet, persistent advocacy that opened spaces for me in rooms I knew she was in and in rooms I may never have known about, end of quote. Similarly, Dr. Camille Samuel, Campus Registrar, Five Islands Campus, here with us today. Morning, Dr. Samuel, remarked, and I quote, I met Professor Barriteau in the mid-2000s when she was assigned as my PhD supervisor. From the very first encounter, I recognized in her a kind of regal resilience. She became not only my mentor, but my friend and anchor. In every pivotal season of my life, she has been there, sometimes with hard truths, always with clinical precision, deep compassion, and a heart so full that you could feel her presence before she entered the room. Eudine Barriteau gives with everything she has. Her love for family and friends is unwavering. Her insights are razor sharp, and her ability to see the world clearly and move through it with both fire and finesse is nothing short of masterful. She is as humble as she is brilliant, and what you see in the world on the world stage is precisely who she is in every other space, whether engaged in policymakers, enjoying a crop over a carnival lime, she says once upon a time, but we plan to pull you back out, or speaking life into someone uncertain of the next steps. There is no pretense, no affectation, just authenticity, integrity, and care. End of quote. This love of students, the dedication as teacher and research supervisor, is further articulated by Dr. Haynes, who tells of her ability to see the incipient, poorly expressed idea as a seed for which Professor Barriteau provides what Dr. Haynes called the loving, watering, and rigorous, keen engagement to nurture it. Doctors Baldwin, Haynes, and Samuel describe long periods of mentorship by Professor Barriteau, the beginning of which coincided with the rapid transformation of Cave Hill School for Graduate Studies and Research. Of this period, Assistant Registrar, Planning, and former Executive Assistant and Administrative Assistant to Professor Barriteau, Deborah Dean, tells of a series of proposals made by Professor Barriteau, as we've heard, for streamlining and improving graduate studies, all of which received the full and enthusiastic support of the then campus principal, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, and then campus registrar, Mrs. Jacqueline Wade. By 2008, the campus registered its highest throughput rate at that time from the School for Graduate Studies and Research. Under Sir Hilary's leadership of the Cave Hill campus, as we've heard, the rapid expansion in institutional capacity, including at the School for Graduate Studies and Research, would be equally buttressed by the establishment of this dedicated home to house the pedagogical and administrative functions for the school here at the Lazaretto, a home for graduate students, for staff of the school, and for the enhancement of the overall research enterprise here at the UWI in Barbados. This through line across her scholarship, activism, teaching and learning, and leadership is powerfully exemplified in the adoption of gender justice as a core value of the University of the West Indies, a concept for which there exists little theorizing outside of that provided by Professor Barriteau in a 2004 essay and in later publications. Here and elsewhere, Barriteau is, as theoretician, cautions us to think beyond the limits of gender equality as destination, in a region for which our social movements center and complicate the operation of race, class, gender, and other valences of power and difference. This she identifies as critical in a wider quest for securing justice or a just Caribbean liberty. Further, Barriteau's theorizing of Caribbean gender systems as historically rooted and maintained across institutions and in everyday practice endures for the ways in which it exposes not only colonialist inheritances of Caribbean gender systems, but ongoing continuities and ruptures in these arrangements. In citing Professor Barriteau's capacity to move across several spheres of influence, Dr. Suan Barrett, head of the Institute for Gender and Development Studies, St. Augustine Unit in Trinidad and Tobago, remarked, "She has always impressed me as a philosopher who translates that philosophy into a range of applied spaces, from knowledge to advocacy to policy to activism within and outside the UE. Professor Barriteau is most engaging, charming, and she has this down-to-earth quality of disarming you, while still being extremely intellectual, intelligent, and evaluative in her commentary and engagement. You can feel she is your neighbor next door, who talks to you and talks through complex ideas." End of quote. It is this quality that surfaces as she moves beyond the academy, operating from multiple points of departure to influence local, national, regional, and global institution building and gender justice advocacy. Spanning over 40 years, Professor Barriteau's contribution to Caribbean and global feminist activism and thought leadership includes her role as the 1988 founder of the Women's Forum Barbados, which she coordinated between 1993 and 1996, her participation as a member of Caribbean Feminist Research for Caribbean Feminist for Research and Action, CAFRA, between 1992 and 2008, her presidency and membership to the International Association of Feminist Economists, her role as regional coordinator of development alternatives with Women for a New Era Dawn, between 1996 and 1999, her numerous membership on editorial boards of international feminist, women's, and gender studies referee journals, and her role as co-chair with Dr. Tanya Haynes in the inaugural Gender and Development Forum of the 15th United Nations Conference on Trade and Development hosted here in Barbados in 2001. We heard that Professor Barriteau was last year elected the United Nations, Barbados' representative to the United Nations Committee on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, the UN CEDAW Committee. Professor Barriteau joined a Caribbean UWITV tradition of service to CEDAW, working alongside Trinidadian Emerita Professor Rhoda Reddock. Before Professors Barriteau and Reddock, the CEDAW Committee was served by Emerita Professor Barbara Bailey, and Bahamian activist and writer Marian Beckles. CEDAW remains the most comprehensive global normative framework in support of gender justice, with 139 countries as signatory of the 193 United Nations member states. So we're talking totally global. Today we honor a woman to whom numerous accolades have already been deservingly bestowed. And these are many of you, as you have heard. But she will tell you that her highest honor remains Mother of Cabral and doting grandmother of Aliyah and Amari. Her friendships span decades. We see present with us here Roberta, Joy, Margaret, Diane, Peggy Antrobus, Jocelyn Messiah, and so many others, so many more, who are long-standing friends. And it's great to see you here celebrating with Professor Barriteau. Directly to you, Professor Barriteau, I close with tributes and words of congratulation from other members of your intellectual family. Dr. Dela Bean, head of the IGDS Mona Campus Unit, wanted all present to know that, and I quote, "You are the definition of efficiency, excellence, and high achievement. Professor Barriteau has never entered a space and left it the same. We at the IGDS are so proud to be associated with her and her aura of dignity, wit, and charm. She radiates wherever she goes." And in her congratulatory remarks, Emerita Professor Rhoda Reddock shared that our paths have moved together for so many decades and we have shared so much. I recall your time as campus coordinator and our many discussions on it, including your advice in relation to strengthening the IGDS graduate program. This is a well-deserved honor, adding to the many prestigious awards you have already received. Congratulations again. To this, Professor Mohammed, Emerita Professor of the IGDS, added, "Professor Barriteau has always been a striking presence on the Cavell campus for her remarkable intellectual leadership, authority, and industry, not to mention the glamour with which she has carried this out. It is fitting that her legacy to the Cavell campus and the university should live on in a building that embodies the gravitas of knowledge and soul of the academia." Professor Barriteau, distinguished guests and colleagues, I close with a tribute to you through the words of M. Narbisi Philip, who writes, and I quote, we all begin life in water. We begin life because someone once breathed for us. Until we breathe for ourselves. Someone breathes for us. Everyone has had someone, a woman, breathe for them, until that first gasp for air. We begin life in a prepositional relationship with breath. Someone breathes for us. We can perhaps call it a form of circular breathing or even circle breathing, end of quote. Professor Barriteau, your enabling spirit has provided a space for us to realize the circle of breath to which Narbisi refers. We thank and celebrate you for not only clearing a path, but also for giving us the space to grow and breathe with the full security of your support and great counsel. Congratulations and peace and blessings.
Thank you, Dr. Deshawn. I think your words were quite thoughtful, very moving, and basically embodies, I think, the spirit and the legacy of Professor Barriteau. So thank you once again. We're going to take a little break from the remarks and speeches, and I invite you to enjoy this musical interlude We have Crystal Cummins Beckles Holder and the faculty, I think, Faculty of Creative, it's a long word, so let me just say the FCC PA, yes, to perform Woman for us. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Is this all they have to show? Kaiso man, please lend me an ear, 'cause I have something that I want to share. When you in your search for wealth and for fame, never ever bring your woman shame. Why? Because she is woman of our children, bearer of life, my queen, my friend, my woman, my wife. Come walk with me, hand in hand, we will guide the youth to the promised land. Shoo-be-doo-doo, hey. Shoo-be-doo-doo, hey. Shoo-be-doo-doo, hey. Shoo-be-doo-doo. When in the beginning the Father made his plan, he saw the need for man and woman. That's why we should show appreciation, love, consideration, and stop the exploitation. It's time that we make a stand, 'cause these songs you sing on the radio, every word the little children know. If you sing about woman jamming fat, how you ever think the youth gon' get any respect? Because she is mother of our children, bearer of life, my queen, my friend, my woman, my wife. Come walk with me, hand in hand, let us guide the youth to the promised land. Shoo-be-doo-doo, hey. Shoo-be-doo-doo, hey. Shoo-be-doo-doo, yeah. Woman help build up this nation. She she helped it to advance. So when you sing, please give us a chance. She cut canes to make sugar, make parts for the computer. She is doctor, lawyer, teacher. She can do more than dance. It takes two if we must go on. Without woman, the human race is gone. Jaja knows that what I am singing is true. It's time that they give the woman her dues, because she is mother of our children, bearer of life, my queen, my friend, my woman, my wife. Come walk with me, hand in hand. Let us lead the youth towards the promised land. If you know this chorus, when it comes around again, sing it from your seat, all right? Shoo-be-doo-doo, yeah. Shoo-be-doo-doo. It's coming out, so just warm up your voice a little bit. And let's go. Because she is mother of our children, bearer of life, my queen, my friend, my woman, my wife. Come walk with me, hand in hand. Let us guide the youth towards the promised land. Because she is mother of our children, bearer of life, my queen, my friend, my woman, my wife. Come walk with me, hand in hand. Let us guide the youth towards the promised land. Shoo-be-doo-doo, yeah. Shoo-be-doo-doo, yeah. Shoo-be-doo-doo, yeah. Shoo-be-doo-doo. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cummins, Beckles holder, for this. Her performance reminds us of how we can use the power of creativity to really uplift people. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I am sure that you enjoyed it, so let's show her some more appreciation. And of course, appreciation to our young students from the faculty of, thank you very much, FCCPA. Thank you very much. And so, without further ado, I would like to invite Professor David Akombo, Dean of the Faculty of Culture, Creative and Performing Arts of the UWITV campus, to offer remarks. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Master of Ceremonies. It's the Faculty of Culture, Creative and Performing Arts, FCCPA. It has a groove to it, FCCPA. And I thank Dr. Halima Deshong. She has a fantastic tribute. And I have taken a few quotations from there. Professor Eudine Barriteau never enters a space and leaves it the same. Master of Ceremonies, Professor Cynthia Barrow-Giles, Professor, Constitutional Governance and Politics, the Department of Government, Sociology, Social Work, and Psychology, the UWITV campus. Her Excellency, the Most Honourable Dame Sandra Mason, President of Barbados. His Excellency Ciro Sebato Infante, Ambassador of Argentina to Barbados. Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies. Professor R. Clive Landis, Pro Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus. Emerita Professor, the Most Honourable V. Eudine Barriteau, former Principal and Pro-Vice Chancellor, the UE Cave Hill campus, and members of her family. Members of the senior management and of the University of the West Indies. Ms. Isiwa Iyahen, head office of the UN Women Multi-Country Office for the Caribbean. Sir Paul Altman, former chairman of the Cave Hill Campus Council, and Lady Altman. Professor Dawn Marshall, University Director, Sir Arthur Lewis Institute of Social and Economic Studies. Dr. Halima Deshong, University Director, Institute for Gender and Development Studies. Mr. Kabra Barriteau Foster, and Mrs. Aliyah and Amari Foster. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, heads of the departments, former members of the senior management and members of the university community, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, here in person and online, good morning. Today we gather not just to rename a building, but to rename possibility itself. We gather in the presence, spirit, and legacy of a colleague who saw beyond what was into what could boldly and rightfully be. If academia were a traditionalist bond to an old educational map with dogma and dusty certainties, it would struggle to navigate the dynamic terrain of contemporary knowledge and innovation. That is why Professor, the Most Honourable V. Eudine Barriteau, is proverbially the ink that redrew the map with new lines to interrogate the boundaries that have hitherto existed between theories, hypotheses, cultural beliefs, spiritualities, and the arts, but to illuminate their interconnections and foster a symbiotic relationship among them. Therefore, it was with her strategic finesse through the channels of administration and guided by the theme, creating new freedoms, crafting new futures, that she led the creation of the UWI's 9th faculty, the Faculty of Culture, Creative and Performing Arts, FCCPA. Professor Barriteau never enters a space and leaves it the same. Located right here at the Cave Hill campus. This historic addition expanded the number of faculties at Cave Hill from 6 to 7. I believe this expansion was integral to her broader vision, one that transcended the traditional confines of the ivory tower and moonwalked straight into the broader Caribbean cultural spheres, such as the festivals. And for those unacquainted with her scholarly path and values she embodies, yes, Professor Barriteau is a cultural connoisseur who genuinely appreciates culture and the arts in all their forms. In fact, Dr. Halima Deshong may have mentioned, if you happen to stroll into the annual Crop Over Festival and find yourself at the Calypso tent, don't be surprised to spot Professor Eudine Barriteau there, probably nodding to the beat with academic precision and a whine that says, I wrote a paper on this. Her great vision extended to the creation of the UE programs, including the incomparable UE Dance Ensemble led by Ms. Aisha Commission, which is immaculate in execution, unmatched in creativity, and revered across the region and beyond. And you'll experience it very soon from the FCCPA. Other FCCPA programs that have since flourished, catalyzed by Professor R. Clive Landis, the current Pro-Vice Chancellor and Principal of the UE Cave Hill campus, include our film program, our theater program, and our music program, you have just experienced a portion, just a snippet of it, one single note. Let's give them another clap because they did a great job. Professor Barriteau recognized that culture, creative, and performing arts are not extracurricular, but infrastructural, woven into the DNA of Caribbean identity, and she dared to insert them squarely into the heart of higher education here at the UWI Cave Hill. She recognized that the Caribbean cannot truly develop if it forgets its inner soul, culture, and the arts. Therefore, she championed a holistic model of higher education, one that uplifts not only research in feminist theory and gendered political economy, fields in which she is a globally respected scholar, but also the cultural and creative arts dimensions of academic life. Under her leadership, the Caribbean cultures and the performing arts are no longer just ornamental at the UWI. They are foundational. In doing so, she positioned the university in step with the 21st century Caribbean shift towards the orange economy, which, as we know, is significant in the Caribbean, where vibrant cultural expressions and artistic traditions form a vital part of regional identity and international recognition. She recognized that the university would support the orange economy by offering a path for economic diversification, moving the Caribbean beyond reliance on traditional sectors like marine and agricultural economy. By monetizing intangible cultural assets, the orange economy fosters innovation, entrepreneurship, and the growth of small and medium enterprises, which are essential to Caribbean economies. Professor Barriteau saw in the Caribbean culture not just heritage, but also horizon. And thus, she gave the UWI not only a new faculty, FCCPA, but leverage for it to play a critical role in addressing youth unemployment by creating new avenues for cultural and creative careers and engagement for younger generations. So today, as we rename the School for Graduate Studies and Research in her honor, let us remember we are not just etching her name on a plaque. We are engraving her vision into the architecture of the future of the Caribbean. Let the name we unveil today be a beacon for generations to come, a reminder that a university should not only educate minds, but awaken culture and the human creative spirits. And that once in a great while, a scholar, a leader, a visionary emerges, not to follow history, but to rewrite it. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, scholars, and builders of Caribbean futures, we honor Emerita Professor, the Most Honourable V. Eudine Barriteau. Let the good times roll. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Akombo. I don't think I've ever seen a dean who has been so proud of his faculty. It's fairly evident. I do apologize for any mistake I may have made. I know you're quite proud of your achievements, and so let me apologize. Before I invite, again, representatives from your faculty, the dance ensemble, to perform dance tribute to Professor Barriteau, let me just take the opportunity to acknowledge the work of Peter, as we know him, Adonijah Allen, who penned the song Woman. Yes? So now we will enjoy another one of the achievements of the faculty, the FCCPA. Thank you.
I'm to be a commodity, part recreation, part reproduction. I'm to be a currency, a price to pride over masculinity. I'm to be all I am told to be. But today, I'm everything I'm not supposed to be. I'm a glitch in societal programming. I'm becoming a bug in the system. I'm a crack in the matrix wall. I'm a wrecking ball, smashing doors, smashing laws. I'm a crack code, reading status quo. I go, breaking iron bars and glass ceilings. I'm demanding, intruding, overcoming the lies and the prejudice. And no, I'm not easy. I'm busy. Making waves, making ways, making space in this place, in this room, in this world. I'm empowered to empower and inspire representation, inclusion, mutual respect. I am direct impact on society. I am equality. I am woman.
Professor, that was truly beautiful to watch. Another round of applause. Truly beautiful, powerful, effortless, just beautiful. Thank you. It is my great pleasure at this moment to introduce our next speaker. I think Professor Barriteau was a little bit surprised this morning when she saw the program, and she recognized that her pride and joy that we heard about for decades was going to pay tribute to her. But you know, at events like this, when we celebrate people, it's so important to hear the reflections of family members and persons who are very close to those people who are being honored. And so, representing the Barriteau family today, we have Professor Barriteau's, as I said, pride and joy. And she told me this morning, her grandchildren, her heart. I know he is also part of it as well. And we're going to hear a pre-recording from her two granddaughters, Aaliyah and Amari Barriteau Foster as they share personal memories with us. That will broaden and add more layers to our understanding and appreciation of Professor Barriteau. I don't think those things are done for women with heels.
All right. Okay, good morning. Professor Cynthia Barrow-Giles, Professor of Constitutional Governance and Politics, Department of Government, Sociology, Social Work, and Psychology, the UWITV campus. Her Excellency, the Most Honourable Dame Sandra Mason, President of Barbados. His Excellency, Sergio Siliberto Infante, Ambassador of Argentina to Barbados. Professor R. Clive Landis, Pro-Vice Chancellor and Principal of the UWITV campus. Emerita Professor, the Most Honourable V. Eudine Barriteau, former Principal and Pro-Vice Chancellor of the UWITV campus. Members of the Barriteau family. Members of senior management of the University of the West Indies. Ms. Isua Iyahin, head of the Office of the UN Women Multi-Country Office for the Caribbean. Sir Paul Altman, former chairman of the UWI Campus Council, UWI Campus Council, and Lady Altman. Professor Don Marshall, University Director, Sir Arthur Lewis Institute for Social and Economic Studies. Professor David Akombo, Dean of the Faculty of Culture, Creative, and Performing Arts. Dr. Halima Deschong, the University Director of the Institute of Gender and Development Studies. Mrs. Aaliyah and Amari Barriteau Foster. Deans and heads of department, former members of the senior management, and members of the university community, distinguished guests here in person and on UWITV, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. And of course, good morning, Mom. Right? Oh, I'm sorry. Forgive me, what? Please forgive me. Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies. Forgive me. I don't know. I don't know. Please forgive me. All right. Eudine. Eudine to Auntie Eudine. Auntie Eudine to Mummy. Mummy to Grandma Eudine. Miss Barriteau to Mrs. Barriteau. Mrs. Barriteau to Professor Barriteau. Professor Barriteau to Professor the Most Honourable Violet Eudine Barriteau. So in keeping with social norms, I have 3 minutes for family remarks. For more than 43 years of a prolific life and a prolific career, I'm going to try to work with it. There are UWI experts here, most of which we've already heard from, with many titles, prefixes, and suffixes on their names that will explain to you all of the achievements that Professor Barriteau has had here and in the region and throughout the pantheon of universities, research groups, and agencies in which he has worked and participated. But for the Barriteau family, to house Barriteau, you are the standard bearer, the most famous among us. Analytical, direct, stubborn, fierce, kind, fair, open-hearted. Your prevailing personality, success, and popularity have made you a fixed point on the ocean, a reference datum in our family and in your profession. Did you tell Auntie Eudine about that? Send that article to Professor Barriteau and hear what she has to say. This will be the second family reunion prompted by your career. Every institution, every family, every seagoing vessel has a lighthouse to guide it to safe harbor during a storm. But after the storm, our first interest is always to the well-being of the ships. Less attention is paid to the lighthouse to see how it fared even after it saved vulnerable vessels from the storm. Today we celebrate our lighthouse. Today we acknowledge that endurance is still hard for the durable, that compassion is still costly for the selfless. The will to be a lighthouse makes you no less of a loving person, makes it no easier to weather the storm. We love you. We love you for all that you have done. We love you beyond all that you have done. We are here for you as you are here for us. Life's blessings, love, and happiness to you, Mom. Congratulations on this monumental achievement. Thank you for being in our family. We love you. And now on a lighter note, a message from the Division of Youth Affairs of the Barriteau family.
Purchase this beat at www.rhythmtree.net.
Freedom of Barriteau. Grandma Eudine Barriteau. Congratulations, the Barriteau family. We love you very much.
Purchase this beat at www.rhythmtree.net.
Good.
Where are those two young? Could they come up for a second, please? Cabral? Oh, she's playing shy. Okay, they're playing shy, but this, I wanted you to see and to meet Eudine's two grandchildren. Clearly, from what we saw in the video, music and dance is in their soul. Just like Eudine. Too shy, leave her alone. Too shy. Thank you. Thank you. Take the child. Okay, we have some recorded remarks paying tribute to Professor Barriteau from His Excellency Mr. Matthew Wilson, who is the permanent representative and ambassador, permanent mission of Barbados to the United Nations. Directly after the recorded message, Professor Marshall will be delivering some remarks as well. So I'll invite Professor Marshall to come up to the podium immediately after we hear the recorded message. Thank you.
Good afternoon from here in Geneva, Switzerland at the World Trade Organization. I am Matthew Wilson, the Ambassador of Barbados to the WTO, the United Nations, and other international organizations here in Switzerland. Professor Landis, Professor Barriteau, it's a real honor for me to be able to participate virtually in this amazing commemoration and celebration of Professor Eudine Barriteau. I cannot think of a better person to have a building named afterward than her. She has been such an inspiration for me, for all of us up here at the mission, and I suspect for thousands of people in the Caribbean, especially in Barbados. Now more than ever, we need voices like yours who speak up for gender equality, for gender justice, for women's economic empowerment. So I just really want to say congratulations, commendations. No one deserves this more than you, Professor Barriteau, and we are so happy to be part of this. Enjoy.
Greetings and thank you. I promise that this is a shortened version. Chair, Professor Cynthia Barriteau, Professor of Constitutional Governance and Politics, and a mentor of mine. Her Excellency, the Most Honourable Dame Sandra Mason, President of Barbados. His Excellency Cyril Ciliberto Infante, Ambassador of Argentina to Barbados. Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, another mentor of mine. Professor Clive Landis, Pro-Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill Campus. Confidant. Emerita Professor, the Most Honourable Violet Eudine Barriteau, another mentor of mine. Members of the Barriteau family, including Professor Barriteau's son, Cabral. I have a little story to share. His granddaughters, your granddaughters, members of senior management of the University of the West Indies, distinguished speakers, distinguished guests, all present here online, via UWITV, and here in person. Obviously, I had a prepared text and a lot that has been said before. Fill the pages of what I prepared to do, but I want to humanize Eudine a little bit by just focusing on one central area, and I think it's going to be a little bit personal to me, but I mean it for all graduate students who have come through and will walk through the Lazaretto space that will be named soon after her honor. Quite often, many of you associate Professor Barriteau with the Institute for Gender and Development Studies, and you don't sufficiently acknowledge or remember that she was born into the Institute of Social and Economic Studies and Research, ISCR, which is now called and named after Sir Arthur Lewis. It's known as the Arthur Lewis Institute of Social and Economic Studies. In fact, it is within there that Jocelyn Messiah may remember most. The Women in Development Project that was being undertaken. And we're going back to 1988. We're taking the clock back a bit. The period between 1988 and about 1992. Professor Barriteau would have been in the Institute, serving in various capacities, but working very closely with Jocelyn Messiah and privy to the unfolding research in women and development. But if I had to capture in a vibrant way the ruminations and early development of the mind of Eudine Barriteau, I would say 1988 to 2008, where she served both Salisis ISCR and IGDS, the MBU, as two development institutes, as it were. One, gender development, the other one looking at social and economic development. But that's 20 years of work on this project called the Political Economy of Development, how it impacts on people, how it shapes futures and life chances. So 20 years of that, of serving a research institute operation, inclusive of her own sojourn to PhD and training as well. Because in between there, she also taught in the secondary school in Barbados, Harrison College, I think that would be. So the 20 years, I want to focus on those 20 years and the impact that it has had on the lessons that she would have imparted. Now, she would have come under the influence of not only Jocelyn Messiah, but also Dr. Patrick Emmanuel, fellow Grenadian, revolutionary, revolutionary thinker. Those days when Professor Barriteau went off to do her PhD, I came in as a young research assistant and also met Pat Emanuel. And in those days, we may know Pat for talking about polling. When we consider Pat Emanuel's work, we remember him as a pollster, but those of us closest to him knew about his theorizing of the state and the who benefits question. Those were uppermost in his mind. The polling represented a part of his public role. But what he imparted, and what I believe Professor Barriteau took, is the role of the public intellectual. Now, I will reveal a little something here. When I navigate the tempests of Barbados and Caribbean politics and I'm stuck, I turn to a few people on my WhatsApp. And I write out these pieces for reflection and for critique. And one of those persons happened to be Emerita Professor, the Most Honourable Violet Eudine Barriteau. 3 things she taught me without saying it in these words about the role of a public intellectual. And I took the time to write them down because I want to capture them. 1, sensitize as you problematize and theorize. What does that mean? As I think through different development predicaments and challenges, as certainly as her lesson also taught, it's important to engage publics. Engage the public. Be engaged in whatever the current energizing conversations are about in the society, in the community, in the region. Be plugged in. But you will, for the benefit of your theorizing, try to provide a kind of thought leadership as you intervene in the public space. Second thing that I learned from her and her lesson, her life lesson, as you engage, present alternatives. So there was a time I switched on my television and heard Professor Barriteau espousing a feminist standpoint based on a woman's right to be. And the year is about 1994. And the host of the program just couldn't handle the word feminist. And one of the things that Professor Barriteau did very effectively was not only articulate, but then to go on to address what a feminist public policy would look like. So we got a sense, the we here being those that were plugged into that discussion, that program on that Sunday, got a chance to hear alternative ways of framing, phrasing, and understanding the role of public policy and how it can serve women and serve gender effectively. Maintaining a critical, now this is a key one. Maintaining a critical distance while not dissociating oneself with power elites. That's a tricky one. The role of scholar is to maintain a critical distance while not disassociating oneself with politicians, corporate leaders. You have to be plugged in to all several publics. But one of the things that I learned from Professor Barriteau's example is that you must be able to still have your distance, to be able to say, I disagree. I disagree. So I say all that to say this. Quite often I'm asked, as I serve in the institute, what is the role of the researcher in the policy process? A question, no doubt, that when I reflect on Professor Barriteau's career, a question that I imagine may have also preoccupied her as well. And what I learned is that you're to stay true to the research process. You're not a politician. You're not there to do anything but to give the benefit of your best advice. And the process of policy making in and of itself, who initiates policy, who shapes policy, the role of cabinet, etc., all that the researcher is there to do is to provide the evidence-based research, provide the alternatives, and leave it there. I know what I'm saying is a bit controversial because some of us in the intellectual class have served state power in ways that can be seen as too close. And when you start to serve state power in a way that is too close, you become compromised. But I always look to Eudine's example. Sorry, Professor Barriteau's example. Sorry. Because 40 years she's been at this, has managed to maintain a critical distance while being in easy contact and while not dissociating herself with the powers that be. I have never heard any saber rattling among any political parties in the region based on any viewpoint that Professor Barriteau has expressed. Never heard it. She's never pandered to any partisan discourse. She's never been seen as doing anything but advancing ideas around justice, equity, people-oriented development. If there are alliances, political parties, groups and individuals that happen to align with the principles or happen to embrace the principles that Professor Barriteau espouses, then there is a happy exchange and conversation. But I have never heard her serving the wishes of any political master in a way which could be considered quite partisan. And so her example, I have tried to follow. I also noticed that throughout the 40 years, she never became well adjusted to injustice, or she never adapted herself to an indifferent posture in relation to people's suffering. You know, that happens to a number of us. We get too close. We are sitting on a board. We're serving committees. And somehow, our distance that we need to maintain gets, blurred. Our way of seeing and framing suddenly becomes a little less critical and more congratulatory. I've never seen that with Professor Barriteau. She's always remained fearlessly in support of justice in all forms. And she's remained a sterling advocate of what is fair and what is right. Integrity, good governance, these are principles that she stands by. And recently, a few months ago, I found myself in hot water, proverbial hot water, because I saw one government using tear gas and other forms of intimidation to put down a protest. And I said, that is not the Caribbean tradition. And I spoke critically about it. And one of the first persons who would have read the report coming out of Dominica and the views that I expressed, one of the first persons who sent me a message on my WhatsApp and said, well done, was Professor Barriteau. And that touched me profoundly because you can feel a little bit isolated when there are many times you say to many media houses, I'm not going to comment, it's not my area of research, it's not my area of interest, but I cannot be indifferent to suffering or injustice. I cannot be. So there are times I have to speak up and speak out. And in the situation that occurred, I spoke out, and one person that was careful to reach out and say, well done, was Professor Barriteau. But I'm going to humanize her a little bit more. So we were in China in 2018. China is a very hierarchical, patriarchal society, but has managed to tackle poverty in ways that the rest of the world are still marveling about. So we were there as part of a UWI engagement with the China University of Political Science and Law. As part of the tour, we had, well, there was the Great Wall of China, and Professor Barriteau was up for that. But there was this high wire cable of astounding height. In Barbadian terms, you know a mile tree? Imagine 1,000 mile trees high up in the air above a peak mountain. That's the best way I could describe how high we were. And we had to get into this cable and go across from the Lazaretto virtually to about half a mile from here before we touched solid ground again. For the entire journey, Eudine held on to, Professor Barriteau held on to my hand and to Cabral and squeezed and squeezed. I never did enjoy that ride, by the way. I don't know if she remembered, but she squeezed the life out of my hand. And, you know, being around her could be a little bit intimidating, I will have to confess. So I'm 6'4" and want to say, oh. There's a powerful woman next to me in all sense of the word. I cannot say anything but bear it. So while she's eyes closed, she doesn't know what happened. She just knows she was high up in the air, and then we got across to the other side. And Cabral was laughing all that while, but he was probably accustomed, but she did squeeze my hand and left me, you know, I couldn't feel my hand for a while. But one of the things about that China trip that stood out for me was the constant questioning about the messiness that she observed, which is highly patriarchal society. That's straightforward to understand. But every official we met, I would say about 3/4 of the officials we met were not only women in leadership positions, but very high positions in the Chinese Communist Party, which is synonymous with the state. So, so don't think party in the Western sense. Think party is synonymous with the state, so high up in the state for all intents and purposes. And if you understand anything about the Chinese Communist Party, if you are in the upper echelons of that party, you're shaping the strategic plans, you're shaping the direction of the country. And that paradox was something that Professor Barriteau kept asking openly about whenever we spoke about the juxtaposing the fact that this is a highly patriarchal society, but you're meeting these women and they're fully conversant about whether it's a corporation or a public service role that they're playing. And it's clear that they're very influential as well, and those are some, she kept questioning the messiness of that and so on, and I found that very engaging. I also found that in many ways there is with Eudine, there's this profound questioning of just about everything to do with order, civility, democracy. And I want to commend students to embrace critical questioning, problem questioning as critical in their research. And I want you to embrace the example that Professor Eudine has set. I want to end at this point by personally thanking you for your mentorship, your continued guidance, and God bless you and your family.
Thank you, Professor Marshall. I think I heard you call my name. I was not. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Professor Marshall. Thank you for those words. I think it was important for you to emphasize the role of the public intellectual, and you are quite correct. I have never heard, in all the years I have known Eudine, I've never heard anyone frame Eudine's observation in a way that would lead to a labeling of her as either for or against, and that's very important. Not many of us, whether or not we start off with sound principles, good evidence, etc., not many of us escape the wrath of politicians when we produce objective truth, which they don't want to accept. But Eudine, sorry, you see, he did that to me. I was doing okay, but Professor Barriteau, you have never been, as far as I'm aware, have never been on the receiving end. Thank you for that. All of us have our vulnerabilities, you know, Dawn. All of us have these vulnerabilities. And it's good to know that Professor Barriteau has the vulnerability. She's afraid of heights. I'm also afraid of heights, which is a little odd because I'm from St. Lucia and all we have are heights. But I'm afraid of heights. I can't climb a 5-story building without feeling sick. And that's the reality. So you should be happy that the two of us were not there. Each one holding on to you. You would be dead by now, all right? Okay, so I'm going to thank you. Thank you very much for that, Eudine. At this time, we'll continue. They are waiting, they are eager, and I can understand. We'll continue with a tribute in spoken word and dance, Queen Eudine by Wise, for featuring also, I believe, the University Dance Ensemble. Thank you.
Maritime legacy. The nuances from the ship lie in the hull, and the body provides the buoyancy that supports the entire vessel. Above the hull, the structure areas are served for labor, where deck girl, kit inspectors, nurses, and the quartermaster see over the ship facilities. The admiral stands high, salute, with the captain by his side, while sailors support sails and contribute to the ship's stability, and the navigators control the engine room and steer the vessel through the rough seas and weather conditions. But the embodiment of the artistic community says, gimma. The ship's sinking, and now we feel like we walking upon eggshells. We don't know why they don't want to hear. We don't know why they don't want to know. It is the politics. We remember an old man come to we. Many years ago, he died now. May he rest in peace. He raised up in the land ship. He teach we, and he won't take no money. We say, haul anchor. He said, what? Pulling down the rigging. It is the Asafo route from Ghana, the people from Fante and Akan. It was the communal spirit that kept we together, the susu, the meeting turn, and the spider's legs that walked through the mud of Ma'afa. And Nancy, the spider, show we how to weave houses. So we won't drop in a hole. Each leg provides shelter as we weave the maypole, the strength of our society. It militant.
Please give the young people another round of applause. Thank you. Barbadian culture on display. And the faculty of FCCPA on display. Okay. We are at this moment where I am going to invite Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, to give his tribute to his former deputy, and principal of the campus. Thank you.
Okay, Queen Eudine. These rains are lit because at Sabina Park in Jamaica, we were all praying for the rain. But maybe the faculty of F and C and P can fix this so that when we pray, they come on time. Madam Chair, allow me to observe the protocol, but of course to recognize our beloved President, Your Excellency, all other excellencies, Queen Barriteau and her family, all of my distinguished colleagues and students. Very good morning, everyone. I am sure you would wish me to historicize a little bit. My calculation, which I made a few moments ago, has revealed that I met Eudine 50 years ago when she was a student at the Cave Hill campus. I was here in the archives. I had just started my graduate studies and I came home to Barbados to use the archive. And I asked someone, where can I go and have lunch? And I was told, up the hill, go to the campus and go to the Students' Union and you'll get a sandwich or something like that. And that's what I did. And I went into the Students' Union. I was a graduate student, and I met Eudine. And we have been friends ever since. But in our journey together, we both came back. I came from the UK, Eudine came from New York, finished our graduate studies, and we converged at the Cave Hill campus again as young academics. But I knew over the years that as friends, our project was to assist each other. I did my best to assist Eudine. Eudine assisted me. We discussed our research papers. When we had papers to publish, I would ask Eudine to please read this paper for me. I want to publish it. She would do the same. I read her dissertation, encouraged her to publish it. So it has been a collaboration that has moved through the decades to this moment. But the principle which emerged out of that intergenerational conversation was that I knew that my role was to get out of Eudine's way. So while the record might show that I participated in appointing her as director for graduate studies and And as deputy principal, I knew my role was to get out of her way. Because the energy, the focus, and the energy was special. It was special. Her commitment to scholarship, her commitment to the intellectual foundations of the KFIL campus. And you must remember, you know, back then we were a young campus. And the reputation KFIL had within the UE family was not very elevated. Mona was the home of UE. St. Augustine had become a close running second, and KFIL was way behind. So we entered at the moment of its teenage development. And there were many scholars then on the campus who were trying to give it an intellectual reputation. But remember, when the campus was built, it could not and did not succeed in competition to attract some of the finest Caribbean scholars to come here. Some did. Professor Carnegie and others came. But the campus struggled. And there was a very strong, palpable sense on the campus back then that there had to be a focus on bringing KFIL's intellectual culture, its research culture, its publication productivity. We had to play catch up and play catch up quickly. Now, when Eudine returned to KFIL, she jumped right into that tradition. And I can tell you, and I hope I don't embarrass her, but any conversation on an academic subject, Eudine's first reaction was, where's the theory? Where's the theory? Because you see, it wasn't enough to write a book and a paper and string together some pieces of evidence and empirical data and you put it together and you publish it. No. The intellectual contribution was in the theoretical declaration and intensity. And that was very important to have that inculcated into academia on the campus. Eudine was a part of that strategy. And colleagues, for some of you who might wish to know this, when KFIL was first staffed as a campus, it recruited high school teachers. So the majority of the early teachers at KFIL were high school teachers who were brought from the high school into the campus. Very few of them had done graduate studies. Very few had done PhD research. And therefore, the faculties then could not generate research and publishing because the academics were not yet prepared. The Faculty of Law, of course, was the exception because that was able to attract some of the finest academics from the region and the world to come here. But outside of law, the campus was struggling. Eudine was a part of the building of that research enterprise. And happily, as you have said, Professor Marshall began her journey in Salisis, which was mandated to lay the foundation. I'm happy to hear that Joycelyn Messiah is here. You know, all of those early, not only feminist colleagues, but strong researchers were laying the foundation for KFIL. So fast forward 40 years. KFIL campus became the campus with the highest rate of academic books, peer-reviewed scholarship in international journals, Cave Hill surged ahead of all of the other campuses and became the leading producer of monographs, academic books, and of course, internationally published articles. That was a phenomenal development. That was the pillar that Eudine made a tremendous contribution to this. Her commitment to this university, and you know, we do not critique our colleagues who, at the height of their careers, move on and go to other universities. We don't critique that because we understand that we're all in a global intellectual culture and marketplace. But while we might do that, some of us have to stay and turn off the light at night. It's important. So Eudine's commitment was carefully crafted. UE grad, New York University grad, back home scholar, professor here, professor there, visiting scholar here, visiting scholar there. But her center of gravity has not left this university. And we thank her for that. We thank her for that. Because that is the commitment on which we build intergenerational growth. That is the commitment. And I end with this. Campuses do not get to put their names on buildings. Campuses do not have the authority to put anyone's name on any building. That is not a power that campuses have. That is a University of the West Indies inter-campus decision. We have a committee that is called the Naming Committee. And the Naming Committee is made up of all the principals of all the campuses, professors, pro-vice-chancellors. It's an inter-campus committee, and we receive submissions from campuses. When I saw the submission from the Cave Hill campus, it was so thorough, it was so impactful that when the committee met to receive this campus submission and to opine upon it, there was absolute unanimous decision by all of her peers that she is deserving of having her name on a building at the Cave Hill campus. And her colleagues across what we call the UWIverse, her colleagues all rose up in celebration of her achievement. Eudine, you will have time to reflect upon that moment when the Prime Minister of Barbados Owen Arthur responded to a letter from us asking for the investment of these Lazaretto lands. A previous Prime Minister had received a similar letter from a previous principal. And that previous Prime Minister said, well, these Lazaretto lands, these lands are worth $25 million, and if the university wants them, I hope they are prepared to offer market price. Then we wrote to Owen Arthur with an argument that this campus, after 40, 50 years, now needs to breathe, it needs to expand, it needs to grow. And he wrote back and says, let it be done. In his usual manner, let it be done. Now, I was since informed that when the Prime Minister took that proposal to his cabinet, that one member of his cabinet said, well, Prime Minister, if you're going to give the crown lands to the university, just give it to them. What will happen in the future if there's no UWI? How do we get our land back? I was told that Prime Minister Arthur said, Minister, if you can imagine a future in Barbados where there is no KFL campus, you are sitting in the wrong room. It's important to tell these stories because, Eudine, we are the ones who inherit this kind of forward visionary thinking. So your building is here on what Prime Minister Arthur, at the handing over ceremony at this spot, said, these are the promised lands. These are the promised lands on which this university will thrive. And I was here when he said that in this spot, oh, maybe 17, 18 years ago. We are so proud of that. So, Eudine, we congratulate you. We celebrate you. All of the graduate students who are going to inhabit these facilities, we would wish them to know that they're in a building that carries the name of a distinguished scholar, the author of very important research publications, too many research papers to count, but you are a research legend in our university, and that is why we are all here. So, it was not difficult to tear myself away from Sabina Park, where we were celebrating, to come home to another celebration. And Madam President, I apologize to you for my late arrival. We have a protocol which we take very seriously, but the plane came in at 4 a.m. this morning, and at 9 o'clock I was still struggling to open my eyes. So I apologize for my late arrival. Thank you everyone.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor. I think you really captured the essence of why we are here, and you captured the essence of Eudine. And of course, it is quite clear from everything that we have heard that Professor Barriteau has left an incredible mark on this institution, and hopefully for generations to come, our students will understand the contribution she has made to this institution. At this moment, I invite you to enjoy another musical interlude performed by Marissa Lindsay and the Faculty of Culture and Creative Performing Arts. Yeah, the student band performing a rendition of I Am What I Am by Jerry Herman.
creation. So come take a look. Give me the hook or the ovation. This is our world that we ought to have a little pride in. Our world where each one should live and love and shine in. Life is not worth a damn till you can say, hey world, I am what I am. I am what I am. I don't need praise. I don't need pity. I beat my own drum. Sometimes it's louder. I think it's pretty. And so what if I love it sparkle and it's spangled? Why not try to see things from a different angle? Your life is a sham till you can say, hey world, I am what I am what I am, and who I am needs no excuses. I play what I'm dealt, sometimes the ace, sometimes it's deuces. This is one life, and there's no return and no deposit. One life, so I choose to live inside a closet. Your life is a sham till you can say, hey world, I am what
Well, thank you so much for that wonderful rendition of I Am What I Am. I think it perfectly encapsulates Professor Barriteau, perfectly. Right? You are impossible to overlook, quite simply, and most definitely an advocate for the marginalized. You're unapologetic, perfect. I don't think there could have been a more perfect song for you. And of course, please, another round of applause for this beautiful rendition of Jerry Hassman, I Am What I Am. And so now we are at this moment. We are the moment where I think all of us have been waiting for a response by the Honorary Emerita Professor, the Most Honourable V. Eudine Barriteau, former Pro Vice Chancellor and Principal of the UWITV campus. All of us, could we stand again just for a moment and welcome Professor, the Most Honourable Eudine Barriteau to the podium.
This is overwhelming. Mistress of Ceremonies, Professor Cynthia Barrow-Giles, Professor of Constitutional Governance and Politics. Her Excellency, the Most Honourable Dame Sandra Mason, President of Barbados. His Excellency Ciro Siliberto Infante, Ambassador of Argentina to Barbados. Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, one of our most outstanding historians, and very poor at math. Because last night I admitted to a niece of mine I was 39. So I don't know how I could be, we would have met 50 years ago. Professor Clive Landis, Pro Vice Chancellor and Principal of the Cavell campus. Dr. Camille Samuel, Campus Registrar, the University of the West Indies, Five Island campus. Members of senior management of the University of the West Indies, Ms. Isua Iahen, Head of Office of the UN Women Multi-Country Office for the Caribbean. Sir Paul Altman, former Chairman of Cavell Campus Council. Professor Don Marshall, University Director, Sir Arthur Lewis Institute of Social and Economic Studies. Remember, don't take high rides with me in the future. Professor David Akombo, Dean, Faculty of Culture, Creative and Performing Arts. Dr. Halima Deschong, University Director of the Institute for Gender and Development Studies. Mr. Cabral Barriteau Foster, and Mrs. Aliyah and Amari Barriteau Foster, and of course, the Barriteau clan. Deans and heads of department, former members of senior management and members of the university community, distinguished guests here and of the UWI and viewing via UWITV. Members of the media, my dear, dear friends and colleagues, I won't get into trouble calling names. Gentlewomen and gentlemen, a glorious good morning to all of you. And I thank all of you for being here and witnessing this tremendous honor the University of the West Indies has graciously bestowed on me. I thank Pro Vice Chancellor and Principal, Professor Clive Landis, his senior management team, Deputy Principal, Professor Winston Moore, Campus Registrar, Mr. Rommel Carter, and Campus Bursar, Ms. Lisa Aline, for your determination in ensuring that my tenure at the University of the West Indies would be marked in such a lasting manner. I know you are joined by a dedicated cohort of planners. The Cavell team is one of the campus's richest resources. All colleagues I've had the pleasure of working with in several capacities during my UWI career. I thank all of you. I am so humbled and honored that all of you have taken the time to be here. Thank you. I'm delighted to have members of the Grenadian Association of Barbados representing Grenada, my country of birth. The principal of the Ellerslie Secondary School, Mrs. Andrea Baptiste, but very importantly, my schoolmates from the Ellerslie Secondary, but then Comprehensive School. My group of friends spanning over 50 years of arguments, friendship, and love. This morning is overwhelming. Oh, I forgot. Sir Hilary Matz has influenced me. This today is truly overwhelming, not least of all because your act of generosity has triggered a joyous Barriteau family reunion, and that clan extends beyond blood relatives to embrace an extended diasporic family that includes the Fosters of Black Rock, Jennifer Woodruff from Grenada, Milton Williams and sisters from Grenada and New Jersey. The span includes Jamaica, the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago, Roberta, Gemma, and Camille, the United States and the United Kingdom. Prime Minister, the Honourable Mia Amo Motley, should be pleased because in our own way, the Barriteaus have decided we're gathering. For a very long time, my son Cabral and I constituted 100% of the Barriteaus in Barbados. So this morning, my heart leaps to welcome my sisters, Barbara, Winifred, and Edna, and continues to sing for my loving sister Grace. I miss my brother Wilbur in England and Patrick in Grenada. And I thank God that my nephews, Cliff, Emmanuel, Cliff, stand up because a lot of people don't know you are here. A lot of the family have not seen him for over 30 years. My nephews, Cliff, Fitzpatrick, Chris, Andre Dax, Renee, Michael Jr., and where relevant, their spouses, Sheena, Priya, Nicole, and Shauna are all here. Thank you so much. The next generation of Barriteau women are represented here by my niece Jessica, grandnieces Olivia, Jade, Willow, and all the way from the land of wood and water, my granddaughters Amari and Aliyah. I am going to concentrate my remarks on my tenure as campus coordinator for graduate studies and research. The wonderful reflections by my colleagues in the many dimensions of my service has done me justice. And since this is at graduate studies, I will focus on my tenure as campus coordinator. And the first thing I want to say is that I truly enjoyed my tenure as campus coordinator for graduate studies and research. As Dawn alluded, Professor Marshall, this may be due to the fact that my UWI career started as a research assistant maybe 15 years ago at the Institute for Social and Economic Studies, Institute for Social and Economic Research, Eastern Caribbean, and that I had such outstanding role models whose research and incisive minds I respected. They were led by Dr. Patrick Emmanuel, my first boss, and Professor Jocelyn Messiah, ISA's director. Perhaps it was at ISA Eastern Caribbean that I internalized the idea that the University of the West Indies must function as a think tank for the Caribbean, that its scholars should continuously release original ideas and innovative ways of grappling with the recurring problems haunting our economic, political, and social lives. I take very seriously the role of an academic at the University of the West Indies. And I think if you're an academic at the UWI, you have to produce knowledge beyond the classroom. A university is not a high school. And as Sir Hilary alluded, I resented the early suggestion that Caville was like a high school. And so I am very firm that a university is not a high school, and the academic community has to answer the call to initiate societal solutions. I believe UWI academics should consult Professor Marshall with regional governments, the private sectors, but especially the people of the region whose historical and contemporary sacrifices are the reasons the UWI exists. I cannot tell you how proud I was that you stood up for the people in Dominica protesting what they saw as an injustice and then being met with tear gas and bullets for the simple act of protesting. That is the role of the public intellectuals. The so-called ordinary people on whose behalf CARICOM governments must act are increasingly, the centrality of their lives and well-being are slipping from public discourse. When they are introduced, they are often discussed as problems to be managed, rather than relevant citizens whose needs and rights are to be placed at the center of whatever governments undertake. The Granad's Declaration of July 1989 reaffirmed and enshrined CARICOM's commitment to the indefinite continuity of the University of the West Indies. The UWI is therefore duty-bound to embrace and occupy those responsibilities. By the time I assumed responsibilities for graduate studies, I was keenly aware that what separated a university from a college was the production of knowledge, and this was embedded in postgraduate research and scholarship. The Caville campus, therefore, had a mandate to deliver and continues to have a mandate. And I was very determined under my watch to ensure that Caville would fulfill this mandate. As campus coordinator, I believe that the UWI had a responsibility to engage with the issues confronting Caribbean societies. I believe then, and I still believe, that the UWI Caville campus is an indelible, intrinsic pillar of the educational infrastructure of Barbados and the Caribbean. I believe the Caville campus is obligated to offer increasingly vital solutions to improve societal well-being within the region. And I wanted our graduate students to understand that gaining a postgraduate degree was more than adding another qualification to their resume. Barbados and the Caribbean function both as an incubator for nurturing original research and an incredible research cornucopia. You could never run out of ideas for doing scholarship. Our history, our people, and our contemporary experiences offer such unusual intersections that untangling our challenges require novel approaches. I accepted it was my job to help graduate students view themselves as scholars in the making. I wanted to motivate them to think of the knowledge they would create, the societal breakthroughs they could offer, the original products they could design, or the unique theories they should start formulating, even as I worked with the staff to remove the administrative bottlenecks that often frustrated our students. I wanted the academic staff to embrace their status as Caribbean intellectuals and cultivate their potential to contribute solutions for the region's enduring challenges. The predicaments we encounter in Barbados and the region are chronically repetitive. What should evolve are the questions we ask of these conundrums. Are there angles and perspectives that we have not yet considered? For example, I am calling on researchers at the Faculty of Medical Sciences to examine the overlapping contradictions of Barbados advocating a healthy nutrition policy in schools, fast fried food companies sponsoring kiddies Kadoomen bans, and the Center for Disease Control advising 1 in 3 adolescents are diagnosed as pre-diabetic. What is the adolescent diabetic rate in Barbados and Eastern Caribbean countries? Did our recent CARICOM heads of government meeting just concluded in July in Montego Bay, early July, discuss non-communicable diseases as part of the regional health agenda? And I really don't care if some of them say, wait, she and the principal are retired. How she mean she calling on us? I am a citizen now, and I'm calling on you to do that research. Early in 2007, as Chair Campus Research Awards Committee, I was approached by 3 junior academics, an assistant lecturer, and 2 research assistants. These 3 young men came into my office one evening with a proposal applying for funds to undertake an analysis of local, I quote, local residents' perceptions of the impacts of the ICC Cricket World Cup 2007 on Barbados. Of course, I was a teenager then. I told them they were way past the deadline for submissions, and I lectured them about the importance of meeting deadlines. However, I accepted their application. The proposed research was original, creative, and relevant. I appreciated the fact that they were being proactive about a contemporary major event and applying their skills to creating knowledge about the intersections of economics, tourism, sports, and management. I endorsed the proposal and recommended its approval to the Campus Research Awards Committee, who also agreed to its funding. I am happy to report their research resulted in a very successful peer-reviewed publication in the journal Tourism Management, the top journal for research on tourism. To date, that publication has 280 citations. These three researchers continue to be prolific. They are Professor Troy Lord, Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences, Dr. Dion Greenidge, Executive Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Sajiko Cavill School of Business and Management, and Professor of Management and Organizational Behavior, Professor Dwayne Devonish, and he's the incoming Director of Graduate Studies and Research, no longer junior academics. I could not have accomplished anything without the commitment of a dedicated, highly motivated administrative team. They were led by Mrs. Gail Carter-Payne, the first senior assistant registrar appointed to the School for Graduate Studies and Research. Mrs. Carter-Payne introduced efficient, streamlined administrative processes and employed data analysis to improve thesis tracking, systematic reporting, and troubleshooting. I was ably assisted by Secretary to the Coordinator, Mrs. Angela Kelman, and other staff members, including Mrs. Anita Kinch and Mrs. Faye Williams. They were preceded by Mrs. Yvette Hardin, who worked tirelessly on the administration of graduate programs. Keeping me organized was Mrs. Deborah Dean, then Administrative Assistant in the Center for Gender and Development Studies. I benefited immensely from her organizational skills because for 4 years, as you might have picked up, I held 2 campus positions simultaneously. I thought Sir Hillary was trying to kill me. In addition to pioneering a doctoral program in gender and development studies. So I was the campus coordinator, I was head of gender studies, and I had just introduced a postgraduate program in gender and development studies on which I was the only lecturer. I thank all the staff members and everyone with whom I worked throughout my UWI journey for their dedicated service to the UWI. Finally, I wish to thank Professor Sir Hilary Beckles and Campus Registrar, Mrs. Jacqueline Wade, who advanced the mission of creating a dedicated home for graduate studies and students by establishing the Cavill School for Graduate Studies right here at this complex. As Professor Barriteau alluded, before here, graduate studies were a couple offices here and there. I thank Sir Hilary for his confidence in my leadership by appointing me to serve as campus coordinator. He and Mrs. Wade supported the proposals I made to reorient graduate studies, expand the staff complement, and introduce a number of procedures to improve student experiences. This complex would not have existed and graduate studies expanded without the full investment by the campus leadership. And on behalf of everyone, Sir Hilary, we thank you. I enjoyed my work as campus coordinator for the School for Graduate Studies and Research, on which, as I stated, I would focus, but I enjoyed my tenure at the UWI, and I enjoyed unraveling the knots and seeking to create change wherever I operated. I tried to do my best. I should say I did my best. It was my best, and I know I did it, to serve the students, faculty. It may not be sufficient, but I did my best. To serve the students, faculty, Barbados, the campus, and the region. On behalf of myself and my family, I thank the UWI and Kville in particular for this singular honor. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you. I thank all of you for coming and joining me here today. And I see all of you, and I am just moved, overwhelmed, and grateful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Barriteau. I know you focus primarily on your work and in graduate studies, but we thank you for sharing with us your benefits. I think your experiences. I think what is important here is that you continue to, I don't want to say preach, but that you continue to speak out about the importance of research. I remember at one orientation for incoming students, I think it was probably graduate students, you made a statement to the effect that there's no student coming to the UWI who should ever feel that there is not something that they can in fact research and make a valuable contribution to the Caribbean community. I thank you also for your words, which certainly indicates that you see the University of the West Indies and certainly the Kville campus as a community that you could depend on during your sojourn at the University of the West Indies. And I think it's also very important, and you did it so brilliantly and so well, for us to pay tribute to the staff of the School for Graduate Studies and Research. Then and now, and you're continuing your tradition. So I think that is, in fact, very important. We're almost at the end of our program, and at this time, I am supposed to make my closing remarks, but there's another important event that we have to do before we move to our reception. But this naming ceremony and the words shared by everyone who took to the podium have served to not only illuminate the significance of this exercise, but also showcase the enduring relationship between space, scholarship, and legacy. And you're the embodiment of that. As academics, we know that buildings are more than bricks and mortar. That's very clear. They are, very importantly, vessels of memory. They are vessels of inquiry and, of course, also of transformation. So in naming this space after you, Professor Barriteau, the campus is not simply affixing a title to a wall. It is not, it is doing much more than that. It is really celebrating the leadership role that you have played in helping to define the intellectual and developmental contours of this institution. Not just Kville, but as the Vice Chancellor indicates, the University of the West Indies. And therefore, it is only right that your name will now greet future scholars, inviting them into a tradition that you and your predecessors have helped to build. I want to quote the Nobel laureate, Irish poet and literary critic William Butler Yeats, who stated that education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. That is so important. Its speaker today, this morning and into the early afternoon, and the artist's performances today added layers to the portrait I think we have all attempted to paint of you today. A portrait of respect that is very clear, a portrait of immense gratitude. That came out very clearly, and a portrait of the motivation, how you motivated people. And I think Dr. Deshawn was absolutely very brilliant in relation to that, in sharing with us all the thoughts of, you know, the people, the feminist scholars, and people who have worked in gender, for instance. So on behalf of the wider academic community, thank you for your contribution and the words that you just shared with us. So as we come to the close of today's program, we once again thank all of you for being here to honor and celebrate Professor Barriteau and her remarkable legacy. It is now left for me to thank everyone who made today possible. I know there have been some thanking already, but this is part of the program and I must do it. This includes, of course, members of the audience. You have been brilliant. Thank you so much. The Office of the Principal, thank you for this. The Office of the Campus Registrar, the Office of the Campus Bursar, the School for Graduate Studies and Research, and all the staff members, the Office of Marketing and Communications, the Office of Institutional Planning and Infrastructure Services, Campus IT Services, the Registry, and in particular, the Office Management and Archives and Records Management. And I want to say a special thank you to Ms. Phyllis Tate and, of course, Peter Lewis, the Office of Student Services and Development, UWITV, Field Tech Staging Solutions, everyone working quite harmoniously to facilitate what I think has been a very successful event. I will thank in advance our caterers, and of course we need to thank the wonderful performers, including Crystal Cummins Beckles Holder, the Faculty of Culture and Creative Performing Arts, Marissa Lindsay, Queen Eudine Wise, the UWI Again Dance Ensemble. Thank you all for being here. To everyone, of course, who shared reflections, memories, and tributes, your words to me have added so much more meaning to this occasion, and I thank you. I want to ask members of the audience to remain seated for the unveiling of the plaque, which is the next stage in today's events. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in inviting Her Excellency, the Most Honourable Dame Sandra Mason, President of Please stand. Yeah, together with our esteemed honorary, Professor the Most Honourable Eudine Barriteau, to step forward and unveil the plaque that marks this momentous occasion. and gentlemen, Her Excellency and other distinguished guests will now proceed to view the exhibition. So I'll kindly invite you to remain standing as Her Excellency and the senior management team and our honored guests proceed to view the exhibition. Thereafter, I will invite you to, well, let me do it now, invite you to join us for a reception right here. Just bear for some moment, we'll have to remove some of the sitting, but the President, Professor Barriteau, and other senior members of the management team will, in fact, proceed to view the exhibition. I also invite members here who wish to view the exhibition to do so at your own leisure, not right now, but at your own leisure, and to also, if you so desire, to make tribute to Professor Barriteau, short video tributes to Professor Barriteau. Thank you.